Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the Sunday Podcast, presented by sportsshoes.com. I'm Ollie Lum.
And I'm Matt Seddon.
This podcast is all about elite distance running in the UK.
We're here to give you all the latest news updates around the sport,
as well as weekly interviews with athletes and coaches.
Stay up to date by following us on Instagram and X at Sunday Podcast.
And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel too, where we post athlete workout videos, shoe reviews and more.
Thanks for listening, and as always, we hope you enjoy the episode.
Okay, hello, welcome back to another episode. Olympic team is out for Paris. That came out yesterday. So, of course, Matt and I thought we'd run you through the selections. We will kind of chat through some of the kind of, I guess, controversial decisions. And we've seen a few bits on social media. I'm sure you guys listening are part of that as well. Some people kind of questioning some of these. We will talk about that. But I think first things first, the main thing is to congratulate everyone who has been selected for Paris. And it is a strong team, isn't it, Matt?
It is a strong team, and we've got to give credit to everyone who's nailed standard and or just met that criterion on the plane, basically. Obviously, we've got Phil Norman up next, so I think we're going to save a lot of the kind of details around selection policy and the politics and the appeals process and his story and his journey for basically, that main episode. And I think it's obviously worth noting that we do want to celebrate his achievements as well, fastest steepler in 32 years, and how he got there, as coaches and students of the sport. I think a lot of people should be interested to hear what his training looked like, how he's developed over the years, because, he's gone to a place that we haven't seen in a long time. So it's a great episode. And obviously it does touch on those all important details of how the last kind of week, I guess, has played out in this sport around the selection policy. But let's break that team down then, mate. We've got no surprises in there. I guess women's 8 and 15 and 10K, no surprises really. I mean, Phoebe Gill, Keely Hodgkinson and Riki, Georgia Bell, Laura Muir and Walcott Nolan. And it's worth being said that 8 and 15 team on the women's side, I think all 6 of those athletes good enough to make a final. So we could have 3 Brits in both finals, which is fantastic. Obviously more on the Paris kind of preview in a few episodes time. And then women's 10K, we got Megan Keith and McColgan. McColgan, instead of proving form at the champs, decided to go to a little road race in Holland somewhere and prove form around a 15:10-ish around about there, 5K. Can't remember the exact figure, but weird choice. If you're a selector, I probably want to see her run on a track, bearing in mind that's what she's going to be competing on. And there's all sorts of rumors that she can't handle a track. That's why she DNF'd in the 10 and stuff like that. And she said she wanted to be in 31-minute 10K shape to make sure that she can, for her to go to the Olympics and stuff. So, look, McColgan's shape, we'll find out. But again, her credentials, she does deserve to go to the Olympic Games, that's for sure. She's not taking anyone's spot. But I just think we're going to touch on the trials and how it's a bit of a mockery. And I think, so not forcing McColgan to run on a track to see how she actually does on a track. I'm not sure how I feel about that. It would have been interesting to see her race people like Hannah Nuttall, Verity Ockenden as well, bearing in mind they don't see these women as good enough to go to Olympic Games. So it would have been a fun race to watch us as fans, that's for sure. A lot more kind of jeopardy at stake. But hey, obviously it's a different event. She's going for the 10,000. Her record and credentials are way good enough to secure an Olympic spot. So there you have it. But no one in that women's 5K team, which perhaps is a little bit disappointing because I do feel like the depth has been pretty good over the last year or so.
Yeah, it has. I think you're right with McColgan though. I think because she's not taking anyone's spot, it's not so much of an issue. If she was, then I think there'd be some question marks there, kind of over that decision. But look, we hope we see the Eilish McColgan back at her best come Paris. So let's hope that, I don't know, that decision to run a road 5K, for example, is what she needed to go run on the track. But yeah, I do agree with you, mate. I think seems a bit of a strange one, but who knows, mate? She's not taking anyone's spot, so not a massive issue. In terms of that women's 5, it's a shame, isn't it? I think we've said before, it's not so much a shame about the selection decision. Obviously, it is a shame, but we kind of knew that was coming. I don't think the athletes themselves expected to get picked. It's just the selection policy itself not allowing for those rankings. So, and I saw a tweet yesterday. I think Jono put it up actually, about people, if you've got like athletes, coaches, if you've got an issue about Tokyo 25 policy,
Now's the
kind of
time.
speak now. Now's the time to,
100%.
yeah,
100%. You got to fight against this governing body right now. Norman alludes to that as well. He says like, can he make change now for the kind of next athletes and that next generation and those other people. And look, it's again, we always say it's a double-edged sword because if you're an athlete on the cusp, you don't want to piss off the governing body because you know that you're going to need to rely on the governing body to pick you down the line, and there might be a close decision, blah blah blah. You might be hoping that you get funding, so again, you want to kind of stay in their good books. It's just pathetic. The whole thing's horrible. And we've said it time and time again. We've had British people who work for British Athletics on the podcast, and they always talk about the development, all these talent hubs and how they're looking to feed athletes in and create more depth in the sport at all the different events and what they're doing to help. If you want to help athletes, just take them to a bloody championship. Like
mm,
you you cannot help an athlete more than that. Like that is all they want. And we hear from Norman, like he's not even getting any finances, like didn't even get a phone call from anyone. It's just, I mean, I won't spoil the episode
yeah.
for you, but yeah. So,
And
you
for
know,
me, it's not just you're not just helping that athlete, you're helping the next generation come through by having someone to chase, someone to follow, someone to be inspired by in your event. And I think that's what they forget sometimes. I think they're thinking, well, this athlete right now, maybe they're not going to improve because they're at the stage of their career where actually they might kind of get knocked out in the heat and they won't come to another one. But I think they forget the knock-on effect that has for 18, 19, 25 year olds, right, who've got another cycle in them or another two cycles in them, who can be
yeah,
inspired and think, oh, actually, yeah, there was three steeplers at the last champ, so there was three 5,000 meter women, for example. But yeah, kind of for another discussion, I think we've spoken about that a lot previously as well. So yeah, no women in that 5K, which is a bit of a shame. But no one to really select from except those who wanted to double. Onto the women's steeple, Lizzie Bird, as expected, is selected. One that I was a bit surprised by, Amy Pratt selected as well. Obviously, she's got the standard from last year, but as far as I'm aware, and I'm pretty sure I checked on Para 10 as well, she's not raced this year.
outdoors, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, and let's be real, she got that standard literally 12 months ago on 23rd of July at the London Diamond League. Like, we've seen very, very little from her. And I was surprised, like, didn't even turn up at champs either. So it wasn't at champs to show that she's like healthy and ready to run and still gets picked. Like that is it's a decision which I think, I mean, look, fair play to her. She nailed the standard, and I think she was something like 10 seconds inside or 8 seconds inside the standard, what 9:16 or something she's run last year. But and obviously she has great pedigree in the event 2022, just an incredible year for her. But yeah, crazy. I mean, she's done a few indoor races. She DNF'd in a 5,000 the week before. Like everything you would look that you've seen from her would suggest that she's not someone who's proven current form. And look, the amount of times BA stress about this, and I know for a fact athletes have one bad race and it's like, oh, how's that going to damage this whole current form thing that they go off? So again, I think this is just choosing that BA will decide who they want to go to the Olympic Games, and they make their
Yeah.
selection policy as grey as possible in order to allow for these sorts of things. But look, credit to her. She is a great steepler on her day, but it's just another example of like a bit of a shock decision.
Yeah, that's it. Like I think we're if it was a full team, it's not that we're saying she shouldn't go. We're saying like it's just almost a surprise that she has managed to kind of navigate British athletics because normally they would be like, well, that's not current form. I'm looking on Para 10 and it's actually showing the 5K she dropped out of. It's showing the 3K split, but not showing a 5K DNF. I don't know if that means she was down as a pacer. Uh, if that makes sense.
I don't know, but anyway, she's only running like 9:01 or something. She
Yeah,
wasn't pacing,
901.
she
So
wasn't pacing that race. I watched it. Um, Unless she was pacing someone further down the field, but I doubt
yeah.
that. She was nowhere near the front of that race. But yeah, so again, another performance, but and you get like a class act like Lizzie Bird, like she turns up, she gets the job done, and that is someone who is like literally nailed on for an
Mm.
Olympic spot. So
Yeah, so that's all the women's events, isn't it? So kind of without controversy, without issue, in over on the women's side. Into the men's, I guess the first one in the 800, Whiteman gets picked ahead of Giles. I don't think anyone's got too many complaints with this, and I'm sure Whiteman himself as well. Like I think he did say on Instagram himself that he didn't like to have to qualify like that. And I don't think anyone is questioning whether that's true. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm sure Whiteman would have loved to come out, whether it be the 8 or the 15, and kind of prove himself a British champs. So it's a real shame for Giles, but I don't think it's a. And I think if you're Giles, you do feel hard done by, but I don't think it's a decision that anyone's really scratching their heads over.
no, no. I think he'll be yeah, he will feel a little bit hard done by, but yeah, when you look at just the pedigree of Whiteman, the way he's running this season. So, he's already run 144 low. He's a 143 guy. And actually, we've been saying for a little while, like, we'd love to see this man in Championship 800, like,
Mm,
see what he can do. Because they're often a little bit slower. Often you see like a 53 first lap, and it's about how you can change pace. And, strongest man kind of usually wins and comes through. So, yeah, it will be great to see him race. So I hope he can get fit because obviously he's got calf issues. So I hope he can like manage that. I guess training for an 800 when you got a calf issue might be a little bit more difficult. But
yeah.
there you have it.
What
But
do you
that
think
means
would have? Sorry, mate. What I was just going to say, like, what do you think would have happened if Giles had come third? Do you think that selection's the same?
same thing. The only way this becomes a bit of a problem, I think, if someone like let's say you got Charles, Bergen, Patterson. Basically, if Patterson comes third, I think is a headache. And
Okay.
that was probably the only way Whiteman didn't get picked in the 800. Because even if Bergen had come third, I think they'd say, well, you haven't raced all year, mate, and
Mm,
look, you're a supreme talent, but you've had injury woes and stuff. So I think they still would have picked Whiteman.
yeah.
So yeah, I think the only way he doesn't get picked in that is if Patterson comes third. Um, so there's your men's 800. Men's 1500, we got Gawley, obviously Kerr and Mills. Another decent team. I mean, we've already said Gawley dominated that. Gawley and Mills, by the way, lining up in Monaco next week. So interested to see what those boys will. Sorry, not Gawley and Mills, Gawley and Giles. So we're going to see a lot more Giles on the circuit, you bet you. We'll talk about that in Monaco 15 later. But yeah, man. I mean, obviously those two are locks and Kerr's a lock, and I guess the only drama here is that men's 5,000. Mills is doubling. Um, and then you've got Diva and then obviously Atkin as well, which is the one where people are frustrated about.
Yeah, I think people are frustrated. I think rightly so. I think just again, it's just it's an issue with the kind of the emphasis that's on the trials. I think in the policy or in the view of the national governing body. For me, this is more about Jack Rowe than anyone else. And I think he's done supremely well this year to get his time down, to get himself fit for the trials, to get the third spot. And I think that's why it's a shame. I think, yeah, I think at least like
Look,
if it had a chance to race and then you get beat, I think it's easier to take rather than obviously got beat by Wesley, but do you know what I mean? Like rather than like actually, yeah, I am third best in the UK because I came third at the British champs. That's what the champs are for, to prove
look,
who's the
Rowe,
best in the UK, or the
this
top
is
three in
it.
the UK. So
Jack Rowe looks at selection policy, and like in fairness to him, like obviously there's athletes who have just missed out on these qualifying marks. Norman, Hannah Nuttall. There's three or four of them in the field events. Actually, just as well, thing I let people know, field events even more brutal. We got athletes inside the
mm,
top 20 in the world who aren't going in the field events. If you look
it's
at
like
the
5 centimeters as well, isn't it, for one of them?
Oh, it's just a joke, mate. And if you look at the stats, only 10 people sort of qualify by hitting the mark, by hitting the qualification standard in the field events. And so, I think Jake Norris is 17th in the world, and to be 17th in the world and not be taken, disgusting. Anyway, I was just saying about Rowe, wasn't I? About how, yeah, I mean, so at the end of last year, he looks at his selection policy and look, Westy is someone who is an amazing championship racer, but has just failed to get that standard. He's okay with that, and I think Westy would always rather be in his position and be an amazing championship racer, or like a two-time British champion outdoors and stuff. And I think Westy kind of knows it's only a matter of time before he gets in a race, where he's going to pop the big one. Just kind of knows his time is coming. Rowe at the end of last year was like, if I want to go to the Olympic Games, the only way I'm getting there if I box off that standard. Like,
Mm.
while ranking points don't matter, nothing matters in the 5K. British Athletics have made that clear. I need to tick that standard. So he does it. And like, it takes going to Boston and missing certain races and having to prioritize and get a specific training block in just to crush that standard. I mean, that's the level of 1304. That's what it takes.
Mm.
And obviously in doing so, and then he goes to the trials and gets third, and yeah, like it's just probably a little bit of a kick in the teeth for him, to be honest, because he has never had the chance to race Atkin.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we'll leave that one there. We'll leave that for you listeners to discuss. But yeah, it's a real shame for Jack Rowe, and obviously congratulations to him on what has been a great season. And then obviously to the guys selected as well. So yeah, not too much for us to
Men's
comment on there, I
10,000?
don't think.
No,
Yeah,
I was going to say, and like, Millsy's doubling, and I get, if they're not taking Rowe, I guess Mills is doubling. They could have took Atkin, Diva, and Rowe as well, but they've gone, in both cases, they've gone for, Mills and Atkin over Rowe.
yeah.
It's a tough one to take, but again, he's classy act and he'll move on, just like kind of Westy and will as well. So, yeah. But Diva's going in there in a 10K, in a 10,000. And
If he gets the ranking spot,
yeah, I was going to say, like, it's a bit of a weird one because they say they've picked him, but he's,
I
I
think
mean,
it
he's
does
got,
say on there on the official selection. It says provided he gets the.
yeah, he's going anyway in a 5, but looking at the 10, I'll be brutally honest, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to compete. I mean, Gressier's the 27th man in the 10,000, and he's going to be doing the 10K. And all the guys ahead of him are definitely 10,000 meter runners. Your Kiplimos, your Chepta guys, you've got Ethiopians, Kenyans, and a few have qualified on the cross, so you can't see them pulling out, but he might get lucky, I guess.
Yeah, I guess because he's going anyway, it's quite a good situation to be
Oh,
in
it's
because
easy
even
for
if
them
you
to
get
stab him in the 10, yeah, for sure.
yeah, and like last minute, I don't know at what point they stopped doing ranking invites. Do you know what I mean? Like when other countries pull out.
So it's officially closed, but obviously, yeah, it just depends when people pull out, doesn't it?
Do you know what I mean? But how late could you pull out to then say, "Oh, you've got a spot"? If that makes sense.
Yeah, see, that's a good question.
Because say I don't know, say I'm running for Ethiopia, right? I'm going. I'm already in Paris. I then get injured. I scratch. Can you then bring in someone from the ranking, particularly if they're already at the champs, say Paddy Diva? I don't know what the official kind of World
Hmm.
Athletics view on that is.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can.
So
No.
yeah, so it'd be interesting if they're yeah, I don't know what the cutoff date for that is, but I'm sure we'll find out in due course. So he's either going to 2 events or one. So great for Paddy Diva. And then yeah, that last one, obviously the men's steeple, no one in there, and we will be getting into Phil Norman in a bit to kind of talk about his kind of issues he's had this week. He put in an appeal when he hadn't been selected, and despite that, he well they kind of, as probably expected, didn't get the call up anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great episode. And like I said, touch on lots of things, not just the politics of the sport. Yeah, and also just like athletes being able to voice themselves now, because it's going to be the same in Tokyo 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to see the same thing happen. And I guess like no one bothers until it directly affects them. And I guess there's only 4 or 5 athletes each year it really affects, which is a shame. And I think everyone are kind of scared to annoy the governing body, but Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. But we'll see. And actually, mate, on that, just tell the listeners what you were just telling me before we came on air.
Yeah, so I just read AW article with Ian Beattie. No one quote me word for word on this. Go read the article yourselves. If but I will try and summarize as best I can. We've had Ian on the podcast before, actually, and obviously, like I do rate that people high up in governing bodies. They're like, happy to chat to people like us, happy to chat to AW, and it's good to get their opinion across. But I couldn't help but feel like it was a bit of a cop out, to be honest. Like the basically was talking about the selection, talking about the reason why they have these standards and don't accept all the world ranking points. It's around kind of how UK sport call it a high performance program. For them, that means kind of competing on the world level. For them, it normally means medals, but actually they've kind of agreed upon, yeah, that's top eight, for example, and made the argument that actually if you have too many people within a team, so I don't know, half of a team of like 30 athletes, whatever it is, who are getting knocked out in the first round, knocked out in the heat, that's bad for the team culture, and actually it doesn't help with getting more medals. And for me, I'm like to say that to be explicit, what he's implying is that if someone like Norman, say, who's obviously following, if someone like Norman gets knocked out in his heat and is sat around the hotel room, that is going to have a negative effect on Dina Asher Smith, say, in her medal chances because it's not good for the team. Whereas if you only take people that are making finals, then I just think it's a bit.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I'd
Yeah,
love to hear it from the athletes. We'll have to, someone will have to ask anyone in that mix only Olympic Games. Ask, ask, our top Brits. Ask Josh Kerr. Ask Jay Whiteman. When other athletes bomb out in the semis or whatever. Ask them if that's affected their medal chances. But yeah, it's crazy excuse. I mean, to be honest with you, I think the biggest reason they don't take people is just financials. And I think the way it works is, they get that lottery funding so they can take athletes who are, medal spots, top eight, stuff like that. And anyone outside that, they have to dip into their own pockets. Um, yeah, and again, like if it's financial, just like open it up and just say to you,
yeah,
Australia,
just say.
Australia do it, mate. It's crazy. If you're
Mm,
if you're not on Australia's funding program or like a certain level, and you qualify for the World Cross, whatever competition it is, Olympic Games, you have to pay your own way. And, other countries do it. And I know many British athletes would be okay with that because of the kind of career changing, like, if you pay, let's say it costs you £1,000 to go to the Paris Olympic Games, like Norman said, he's probably invested £10,000 more in himself this year alone. Um, and, an extra £1,000, well, what's that? Because you probably would get it back.
mm.
Um, as an athlete, you would get a bonus in your contract, you get all sorts. So it would make a lot more sense if they did open that up. But whether that will happen, we'll see. But the bottom line is they are, even Norman says, in a lot of financial trouble, basically bankrupt, £3 million deficit. Like they're in a horrible place. Barry Fudge echoed it as well, didn't he? So there we go.
Yeah, it's not good, is it? But yeah, it's don't know. Not much for us to say on that one. I guess
Oh,
we could something, yeah, in future. Seems like a lot of you guys on Instagram are very passionate about it as well. So I just encourage you to, if athletes like Norman are seeking for people to kind of share his story and things like that, I just encourage you to keep sharing that and do those things. I guess
100%.
Matt and I will have a think about things we can do. Obviously, we try and discuss some of those issues on here. But yeah, we'll have a think about things. But
Yeah.
so tough, isn't it? Like how do you go and influence the selection policy? Like everyone's saying, yeah, let's take a stand, and I think yeah, people need to, and people are happy to. But we have this kind of athlete commission thing, and I'm sure they're not happy about it. But I hope
Yeah,
they manage to
I don't
get
even
through
know
to them.
what. Yeah, I don't even know what powers they have, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, mate, that's it. I mean, next week, I mean, we've got a big weekend by the time you would have listened. Paris Diamond League's gone down, Fast 5,000, loads of races going down. We have got Monaco next Friday, ladies and gents. So enjoy that. One of the hottest Diamond Leagues of the year. I mentioned in that men's 15, it's looking a little bit, well, small field at the moment, strong field, but small field. You got kind of Nagus, Ingebrigtsen, Gawley, Giles, Chariot, Arise, Brian Coleman, Laros. So, yeah, decent. They're half decent fields in Monaco, but they're not the kind of Monaco fields we've grown to kind of, I guess, been spoilt with over the years. And I just think that's the time of year. A lot of people are going to go to altitude. A lot of people are going to be in a heavy training camp and not wanting to race. And kind of women's 5K is about sort of 8 in the minute at the moment. So sure they might add to these fields, but we're going to see
Yeah.
them. We're going to see Patterson in an 800 there against like Arop and Wanyonyi and those guys. So that'll be pretty cool. But yeah, it's not the kind of Monaco we're used to.
Yeah, it's not. I think it does just reflect the sport at the moment. I think me and you chatted about this the other day, mate. Like, I just think the sport is not. If you want to compete well at the champs, the sport's not conducive for you to go and run, or it's not conducive, sorry, to go and run a really fast competitive race at Monaco at this point, close to the Olympics. I think athletes really like ticking off their standards early, and not just ticking off their standards, running a hard effort at kind of PB territory early in the season, and then worrying about actually preparing for the champs, which is a completely different game.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think,
But
on that, they've got a women's 2000. Like, what? That's got to be the first time I've ever seen a women's 2000 being run in the Diamond League. Even a men's 2000, you see them in a couple like low-key World Tour meets, but bizarre. But I think again, it reflects maybe the time of year they're thinking outside the box a little bit, and they're like, hey, like this will accommodate a few 15 runners, it accommodate a few 5K runners, or so
I think
yeah,
part of it's like you if say right, say you lose a 2K, no one's
it
like
doesn't
thinking,
matter, right? Yeah,
no
no
one's
one.
thinking, oh, they're not ready for the Olympics. Whereas
What's
if you lose your
even
event or you run
yeah.
bad in your main event, everyone's asking questions.
Well, what's even a good timing for a women's 2K? You just don't know. Like none of actually looking at it, like none of them have ever run one. Like none of them have got a PB for one. So, is 520 a good time or is 530? So it'd be a bit of a weird event. I'm surprised it's at Monaco Diamond League, but there you have it. So that's to look forward to next week. And then of course we've got London Diamond League coming up. I'll keep you posted on those fields. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode because it's a bit of a meaty one today. So we'll let Norman do the talking now.
Yeah, let's get into Phil Norman. Enjoy the episode with him, and we'll catch you very soon, including what will be kind of our predictions for Paris, because we haven't obviously gone through those today, chatting about a team. But yeah, over to Phil Norman, and see you guys soon. Okay, firstly, Phil, just welcome to the podcast. We're recording this kind of as the news has come out to everyone that you won't be going to the Olympic Games this year. I guess is the outcome that some of us expected, but really didn't want after your performance last weekend. How are you feeling, first of all?
Yeah, obviously, just really disappointed um, with the result around the selection, around my appeal. Getting to outright qualify for the Olympics and for that chance to be taken away, basically by UKA. Proud of what I've done, but at the same time, just completely disappointed and gutted that opportunity won't be there for me.
Yeah, man. I mean, we'll get into the kind of politics a little bit later in the podcast, but first, I think it's probably worth just celebrating your performance last week and just talk us through that race, the emotions going in, the emotions kind of during, and obviously after as well.
Yeah, it was pretty special, really. I've had time now to process the disappointment of not hitting the time and to really look back on that. And I think it was like a really special race, just to be a part of that. It was a combination of like that crowd support in there. We had a sold out stadium there, which just never really happens for champs. I know it's a small stadium, Manchester, but it never normally gets sold out anyway there. But you could just feel that that presence of the crowd and like just that the willing of them, I could tell they were willing me to get across that line. But no, like I thought it was something special. The four of us, we're all there. We've got that same goal. We want to try and get that standard, and it was kind of like if one of us could do it, then it was kind of it was a success. So just to be part of that race, that is always going to be a really fond memory for myself. And I really hope it is kind of the start of something, and really highlighted steeplechase, at that level, and that people see it and see that it's an exciting event, and that also that the crowd like to see it as well. So yeah, I just hope that despite not hitting the time, that it's definitely had like a positive effect on the event.
Mm. Yeah, and I think in terms of distance races on the day, you guys got the closest to like that qualifying mark out of pretty much every distance event, but you would say, the 800, but where the margins are smaller.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate the other races. People, pretty much already had the standard wrapped up, and they were racing for positions. But it still doesn't take away from what we guys ran. The times like Will's time, that was a PB for himself, and I think that puts him 12th on the all time list. So Will's run itself was a brilliant performance as well. And the fact you're doing it at championships, like there's so much on the line. It is tough to perform at the UK champs. Like the conditions aren't great. We're doing it mid-afternoon. Like it's the windiest part of the day. Everyone knows that's the windiest part of the day is mid-afternoon. You never want to be training at that time of day. You either get it done early morning, or you wait till the evening. And we're stepping out on the track. It's raining. So yeah, it was definitely we got close and put in decent performances. But yeah, that was just basically down to the four of us, coming together with with the same goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously I think it was about 0.16 off the time. Was this something that as you crossed the line, did you sort of think to yourself, that's it, there's no chance, or was it one of those, I guess, almost horrible moments where you still had a little bit of hope in the governing body,
Well, first of all, like coming down the straight, I really thought I was going to get the time. I saw the clock with 100 to go, and then even as I come over the last barrier, like you can see that clock as you're approaching the line, and as athletes, racing, training, you get a really good sense of how you're moving and what the clock's saying, and at what point you're going to cross that line. And when I did hit the line, like as I got close to it, I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Let's just get that dip in just to make sure. Because I was like, I'm sure I was going to be inside at 8:18.5, and then I saw the clock stop at 8:18.66, and I was just like, man, like it was just like initial, just kind of like, oh man, I didn't do it. I wasn't even thinking at the time like, oh, I'm sure that wasn't right. But yeah, in my head, I was like, I know what they're like with the policies. Like, I'm not an idiot, and I've been through this before. So I knew like unless I had done that at 18.5, it was going to be, it would have taken an absolute miracle for them to select me. Because I was looking at the policy, at the start of the season, and like I was thinking, I could run at 18.50 and still they might not select me. They don't have to pick me. So I was thinking, like, looking back now, even if I did run it, like, what's to say they would have selected me anyway? Like they could have found a reason not to pick me. That's kind of what they do. But I looked back at the BBC coverage, and like I wanted to watch the race back and just to see, like, in my own mind, could I have done anything different? And like, I took the last water jump so well. I nailed the last barrier, just did everything to get to the line. And then I looked at the footage, because you can see the trackside clock as to when I crossed the line, like with the camera angle. And I slowed it down, and that trackside clock, I actually crossed the line at 18.4, and you can see clear daylight between myself and the line at 18.5. So it's kind of like, it begs the question to me, like, is even that trackside clock accurate? Like we're not to say the time isn't official, like that is, that's the official time given from photo finish and that. But as athletes, we're running to that clock, we're gauging our effort on that. If that's 2/10 of a second out, that's the difference right there. Like when I'm 0.1, I'm 1500ths of a second outside. That is such a fine margin. And just it's just comes down to frustration that it's just down to 0.15 of a second that makes all that difference, and no discretion is shown in any way whatsoever around that fact.
Yeah, it is such fine margins. Yeah, you talk about discretion. I mean, you're running at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Had you boys have had wave lights, 7 at night or something like that, what could you have done? But I guess, there's few opportunities for you guys as well. It's a bit like we've seen in the men's 5, unless you're going indoors to really nail those times, there is few opportunities outdoors to get them. So it's kind of the place the sport's in. But you mentioned at the start of the season, you're looking at the selection policy. You're an optimistic athlete. You're in good form and stuff. So you look at the time and you think, I can nail that. Whether or not I go or not, we'll see. But should athletes kick up more of a fuss when these selection policies get announced, 12 months out? This Olympic policy might have even been earlier than, been out for 18 months or so. Should we be complaining then as fans and athletes, and somehow protesting? In what form, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we definitely should. It's easy for me to say that now, like after the fact. And I suppose myself, I always believed in my own ability to be able to hit those qualifying times. But you look at like my case now and others which have outright qualified via world rankings, and those guys, like, they're a lot higher in the world rankings than I am. I'm obviously very close to this UKA standard, but especially like the throwers and that, they are like really high up in the world rankings. But yeah, I think in hindsight, looking back, yeah, like maybe you should have like tried to do something back then when these policies come out, to say, look, hang on a minute, that ain't right. Something, you can't be just deciding like who you want to take, like just to fit your own agenda. The athletes need to have a voice. They need to have some kind of say on like how these policies are formed. And if it's not the athlete, then maybe there needs to be some kind of independent regulator or something that comes into it. And if it's not the selection policy itself, at least have a fair appeals process, like an independent party actually creates the appeals process. Because UKA, they create the selection policy, they also create the appeal policy. And when you look into the details of the appeal policy, they determine what you can actually appeal on. So it's not open to yourself to appeal on anything you like in terms of like justifying your selection or allowing for discretion. You can only appeal on a very minute options on there. So the appeals process itself is just stacked up against the athlete as well, in a way that you just got no chance of winning. I had a sports lawyer and a barrister draft up. I had the help of them to draft up mine. We had really strong case, like lots of evidence in there, lots of valid points around the policy, and it was just completely dismissed. So I think there definitely needs to be some kind of change around either the selection policy. If that can't be changed, then definitely the appeals policy. Like even when it comes to the panel that hears the appeal, the chair is selected by UKA, and then it's just to then like other people which go onto it. It's just, yeah, I think like they just have too much control over everything, not regulated. They don't have to answer to anyone. They're just kind of a law unto themselves, really. And there has to be some kind of change there.
Can you talk us through kind of the process this week? So like what you've had to go through like day by day? Because I guess it gets published like what the process is, but not many people really know what happens to an athlete in your position, for example.
Yeah, so obviously my race was Sunday. That was the final day of the champs. It was Saturday and Sunday. Um, the following day, on the Monday, is the selection meeting. And typically, from my experience, if you are selected for the team, you are notified kind of the evening of that Monday after the selection meeting takes place. I've never had it in the past that I've been selected for a team and told the following morning. So yeah, when you look at the policy and everything, it basically says if you haven't heard by midday on the Tuesday that you are not selected. So I waited until like 11:30 the following day and was like, okay, I'm not selected. But I knew like the night before, going to bed that I hadn't been selected just from past experience. So yeah, then it was just a case of getting the appeals process going, which was getting my notes from the selection meeting. And then once I got those notes, I was able to see why I wasn't selected and was able to start drafting up my appeal. So I'd already reached out to a sports lawyer at like 9 a.m. that day, like preempting my like non-selection. Got the ball rolling with that, and got started putting together like all the evidence I had and facts, and got that across to him. And yeah, he got in touch also with a barrister, and yeah, we drafted up an appeal because that had to be submitted by 12 p.m. the following day. So you've basically got 24 hours. Yeah, it had to be. Yeah, so that had to be in by Wednesday at noon. So you've basically got 24 hours to put it all together. And I thought what we had done in those 24 hours was pretty impressive, to be fair. Like, hats off to the sports lawyer, Marco, who I got in contact with. He dropped absolutely everything to help me out, and yeah, so we got that appeal in, and then basically UKA then have their chance to defend against the appeal before it goes to the panel, like for the hearing of the appeal. But I have no chance to defend against like what they've defended, if you see what I mean. So I put my appeal in, they defend against it, and then that goes off to the panel. And then so the hearing was then on Thursday, and they had to tell me the outcome of it by 10 a.m. on Friday. And I heard at like 9:20 Friday morning that my appeal had been rejected. I can't say why it was rejected because I still haven't received my notes to say why the appeal was rejected. I've literally just had an email saying, dated Friday, that the appeal was rejected. But I have been given no reason to why it was rejected. And I've got no notes around the, of all the different points I put in there to why I should be selected, and why my appeal should be accepted. Yeah, I've had no written responses to that. I'm still waiting for it. And, it's been, almost 24 hours since that appeal rejection came through. So, for me, like, I still don't have that full closure as to why I wasn't selected, like why my appeal was rejected. This week itself has just been probably the toughest week I've ever gone through. Like just with like just the mental stress of it all, really. And I think that's the part which just UKA just don't realise what the impact is on the athlete on that other end. So after stepping off the track at the champs on Sunday after my race, I haven't had one person from British Athletics contact me. No one there at British Athletics, came up to me and said, "Oh, cracking race, Phil, well done, championship record or whatever." No one reached out to me around like, "Oh, sorry you didn't get selected." No one's reached out to say, "Oh, sorry your appeal was rejected." Or no one's just even reached out with the common courtesy and decency just to be like, Phil, I know how tough this week must have been. How are you? Like, just as a human being, like, I'm not talking to you as an athlete right now. Like, how are you as a human? How are you mentally? How is your just general well-being, you know? Like, there's just no support. Like, it just does not exist within UKA. Like, maybe it does if you're on funding, but like, if you're not on funding, like, there's just no support whatsoever, you know. And you know, I've represented like British athletes in the past. Like, I've been at the Olympics, I've been at European champs. It's not like I have had no involvement with them whatsoever. I'm 2 times national champion now, like, and no one has just even like just given me a call, like, to say how are you, Phil? And I think that's just feel completely let down by them there. Like, it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, man. The process, the appeals process and stuff you just described, and you mentioned funding then as well. Like, it's the same thing for funding, isn't it? And how that can change and shape people's lives, financially and support them going forward. You're Britain's fastest chaser in well, this century, wasn't it? Jeff Wyman said, and even more than that. If you were to go to Olympic Games, would you have even wanted to kind of put that vest on and be running for what is basically UK athletics and those people in charge?
I mean, like, I run for GB. Like, I'm really proud, like, to represent my country, you know. But you know, I would definitely, you know, when I wear that vest, I'm running for my country. You know, that's what it is. You know, and I always feel proud to represent my country at any chance I've had. You know, that's why you know, in the past, if I've ever had the chance to run for, like, you know, England on the road or cross, you know, I've been like, yeah, I want to do it. You know, because I want to. You know, that's why I do this sport, is to represent my country. You know, I'm proud of that. And that's why I don't understand why UKA are the ones who get to decide, you know, who runs, you know, and it's not the British public who is funding it, you know. Like, at the end of the day, it's taxpayers' money which fund, you know, UKA. Like, comes from UK sport, and they have no say in the matter whatsoever. It's just down to UKA to decide who runs, you know.
Mm. Yeah, I think particularly obviously in a case like this where no one else is kind of eligible. If you were from another nation, you would be getting an invite. Is that where I guess your main frustration comes from? That if you lived pretty much any other country, I'm trying to think of any other nations that have their own kind of discrepancies in the policy, but pretty much any other nation in the world, and you're in the position you're in, you would be getting invited.
Yeah, I think it's important to, you know, note that it isn't just UKA. I think there's Spain. I think they had something within their policy that you had to, like, show form or hit a certain time this year, because there was Victor Ruiz. He ran 8:14 last year, came second at his national champs, and he will have his, he's qualified outright by that 8:15, which is bonkers, you know, and he will have his. He won't be selected, you know. They're not going to take him. And which is a real shame. Everything's in Spanish, so it's hard to know exactly what's gone on there. But I'm pretty sure he had, like, a really serious injury, you know, over the winter, like off the back of last season, which makes it even, like, like, even harder, you know, to get my head around that. You know, like, when a athlete's overcome an injury and they've come back, like, they know they've got that Olympic time, they've come back and, you know, they've come second at their champs and done all they can, and not be selected is, yeah, that's really hard to see that. And I think there's also Sweden. They've got 4 guys who are on the world rankings. Obviously, it's only 3 per country, but so they could have taken 3 of them, and they're not taking anyone. So when you include myself, the guy from Spain, and the 3 Swedish guys, that's 5 guys out of the 36. You know, 36 is not a big number. It's gone down from 45 to 36. You've got 5 guys there who have outright qualified, and they're not going to be at the Olympics. So instead of having, you know, 5 within the 36, you're suddenly, you know, dropping it down to 41st. You know, and you know, like, it begs the question, like, you know, can you know, world athletics, you know, like, surely they need to step in. Like their whole qualifying system is being undermined by, individual like national federations, and completely like diluting the quality of the championships themselves. Like the whole thing was that that they made these standards so hard was to try and like get more people qualifying via the world rankings, and then people are qualifying by the world rankings, and it's being declined. It's sort of, surely there's something that World Athletics can do to penalize countries that, or state something within the policy that there has to be some kind of exceptional reason for these invites to be declined, or it's down to the athlete to say accept it or not, based on if they're injured or along those lines, or so it's hard to see really like what can be done, or on the flip side there could be whether there's like an incentive for the federations to accept these invites, because from the statement yesterday from UK Athletics around like not wanting to take people that aren't top 8, and how it affects like other people's medal chances and things like that, like it's all about like they just want to take small numbers which are going to make the performance as a team look better, like just to get more funding. It's just how everything's set up at the moment is like, their policies are just read UKA, we do what we want. Like, no way they're wasting time and money like drawing up these policies when they just do what they want anyway. So yeah,
it's bonkers, mate. And yeah, you mentioned Sweden. I mean, they've had some really bizarre decisions with how they've gone about things. And if it's you've basically trained for so long, kind of off your own back, you've taken time off work to prepare for these Olympic Games. If it's a financial issue here, which I think from speaking to people, it is at British Athletics, it's a financial issue taking X amount of people to championships. I'm sure, people like yourself, and there's a few throwers as well, even like Hannah Nuttall as well, would pay your own way just to go to, hop on a train to go to Paris.
Yeah, 100%. Like the amount of money I spent this year on qualifying for the games, like it's a drop in the ocean just to spend a bit just to get to Paris and compete, man. Like 100% I'd do that. But I think like I don't even think it's the money is the issue there, because I don't think it comes from their budget with the Olympics. The other chance it does. We can see that from Europeans. Like, why else wouldn't they fill the spots? Like, limit it to 70 people. That decision there is purely based on money. Like, I can 100% guarantee that. Like, they are like over £3 million in deficit. Like, and that's from looking at their 2023 year end. And like, this is public information. Like, anyone can see this. And they have said in there that they have taken measures to ensure that their 2024 year end will be better than it currently is. That's one of those measures, that 70 athletes. Like, that is fact. Like, no matter which way you look at it. But yeah, the Olympics, it isn't down to that. I think it's more the fact they want to just look to have a really strong performance off the back of the number of athletes they've got, to get more money from the UK sport and to like basically fund themselves. But yeah, when you say about going independent and like funding yourself, that's 100% something I'd want to do, because it's basically what I've been doing for the last 5 years anyway. So that would be like no change to me. I get no support whatsoever from British Athletics as it is, and I never have. So it would just be an absolute drop in the ocean to me to pay my way to go to the Olympics this year. And I'm sure other athletes would definitely be open to that as well. And on the flip side, it might even open the doors for me to actually get some kind of sponsorship.
Yeah, you're bang on. It's funny, we've had British Athletics members on in the past, and they talk about the development they're doing at grassroots and talent hubs and how they're putting investment in there, but actually they're not even looking after like those on the cusp of teams and what damage that is doing. I spoke about this briefly to you after the race. I mean, we've got the best depth in the steeplechase we've ever had on the men's side, 4 of you inside the top 15 all time. Are you a bit worried about the kind of next generation in steeplechase?
100%, I think like this is going to damage it massively to see that you know, I'm not wanting to blow my own trumpet, but like, you know, like I have run the fastest time in the last 32 years. That performance I did was a championship record, which had stood since 1990, and that wasn't even held by a British athlete. That was Philip Barutquo from Kenya, who's an 8:05 guy. That was back when like it was the Triple A's and it was open for invitation for international athletes. You know, I've won the Olympic trials. I've run sixth fastest time by Britain, and still it's not enough. Like, you know, you can't help but think like, you know, an up and coming steeplechaser would see that and think, Christ, you know, is there any hope? Like, you know, is it worth like putting all this time and this effort into this when there might not even be like any reward for it? You know, like we talk about this all time list as well. Like these times aren't ones which have just been like run recently. You know, like all those times are from like the 80s, and the most recent was like 1992, Tom Hanlon. And you know, Tom Hanlon, he came sixth in the Olympics, you know, in 1992. 1988, Mark Rowland, he got bronze at the Olympics. Like these guys which are above me on that list running in those eras, they were like, you know, either medaling or in finals of like Olympics. Like, so yeah, you know, I do worry about steeplechase because like it just doesn't get the help and support required. I talked to you after the champs actually in regards to like just the opportunities for steeplechasers in this country with the races. You know, when you compare it to other countries, and we haven't even had a challenger level meet this year. You know, prior to Olympics, like you know, in the BMC, you know, so you know. There's just like it's just so hard for steeplechasers, you know, and you can't run as many times, you know, like 8:15s or even flat races because the steeplechase it does take a lot out of you, you know, each race you do. So yeah, you know, but I want to try and do what I can to, you know, keep promoting steeplechase and you know inspire those guys because you know it's a great event and like I'd hate to see like it just completely fall apart. I really want to see like youngsters coming through and succeed in steeplechase and keep that legacy going on because you know we've had like male representation at the Olympics in the men's steeplechase. Like I've looked back as far as like 1956, and every games we've had someone there. This will be the first time since then, you know, that we haven't. So that's a real shame, real shame for that to happen. You know, and us four guys at the weekend, we've done all we can to try and get that representation in there this year. And yeah, it's just basically UKA have completely failed the event and failed us as athletes, you know. So we'll just have to see what happens, you know. Like, but yeah, I'll do what I can to keep promoting steeplechase.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that obviously, like yourself and Zach went last time, and it's not like you've gone backwards or stagnated. Like you said, you've run that time, you've PB'd this season, you've improved as well. So yeah, I think that's probably where most people and obviously yourself are getting annoyed. Let's chat about kind of the good training you've done though. Like what does it look like in training to get you to run 8:18? Because I think we need to kind of look at that and celebrate that as well, rather than just always kind of looking at the negative side of it, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I coming on this podcast, I was like aware that you know, I'm pissed off with things, and I didn't want this pod just to be purely like people listening to me moaning and being like a real negative. Like I'm aware that people might be on their run right now, and they're just kind of like like dragging their feet a bit now. Like so, let's try and put like a spring in their step, eh? But yeah, I mean, yeah, with the training, like I wouldn't say I've done anything that's like spectacular or like knocking things out the park. I think the main thing is like, you know, this year compared to previous years, like I have been off work since the middle of February. So normally I'm working full time as a pole tester for Openreach. That's like 4 days a week. It's full time hours, but it's 4 days a week. So I work Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, like 7:30 till 5 o'clock. But I have Wednesdays off and the weekend off. So that kind of like gives me structure to the week, you know, so I can fit my training around it. So yeah, since February, I was really able to kind of like middle of February, I was really able to step things up, and I had about 5 or 6 weeks in a row where I was kind of like between 70 and 80 miles, which might not sound a lot, but it's like big numbers for me. When like I'm probably normally only averaging like maybe like 60 miles or thereabouts, just because of like with the work I do, it's a physical job. It's like it restricts me like how much I can really do without like sort of breaking down. So yeah, I think like what I did through February, March, like played a big part in like the racing period. You know, like I was able to get some real decent like mileage in. I didn't miss any sessions. Like the sessions weren't amazing, but like I just had week on week of like not missing any runs or sessions. You know, like just managed to tick all the boxes. Um, so yeah, then when it did come to race, like mentally, I knew that I had done more than I had in like 2021, sorry, when I'd run 820. So I knew what kind of shape I was in, you know. So then when I did that 2K chase and ran that 525, I finished it and I was like, I didn't like, I had so much left. Like I wanted to go with 2 laps to go, but my coach was there and he was just basically shouting like, no, not yet. So I just tucked in for another lap, and I didn't really get going until the final 300. And I crossed the line. I was like, oh man, I got so much left there. So I knew off of that like I was in shape. And then so then I went to the following weekend and did Karlsruhe, but at that time I didn't have like the European qualifying time, so part of me was like playing safe. Like I didn't want to commit to the early pace because I I was a bit scared of like blowing up and not getting the Euro time. So part of racing early in the year was just to nail that Euro time to get selection for that. So I kind of in that race found myself a bit on my own, just running solo for pretty much half the race, and then just pulling back the guys towards the end, which had gone off hard. And yeah, ran 821 there. But again, I crossed the line. I was like, oh man, like I know there's so much more there. It's just kind of like that was a little bit frustrating looking back, you know, like just at some of these races I did. But yeah, so you know, the early season was just about trying to qualify for Euros, and then I went out to Brussels because I thought like, okay, this is my way of cementing my spot. I'd seen Zach had gone out and done an 820 point. I thought, okay, well he's like in prime spot now, like for selection. I knew there was 70 spots. So I knew it was like pretty limited what, you know, how many spots they'd be taken. And then unfortunately, like the Brussels race, I picked up illness going into it. I still went out there and ran, but it was only good enough for an 825. But you know, 825 on the bad days was like I thought, okay, that just sort of shows what where I'm at now. Like if I can run 825 when I'm not 100% in a really messy race, like we had 25 guys in there, like with PBs between 820 and 830. It was like absolute carnage. Like you know, I don't think I ever got onside in like the inside. Like on the rail at all that race. Like I think I was always wide in the water jam. I was like, oh man, that's the messiest race I've ever done. So you know, obviously didn't get the Euros, and I didn't appeal against that. I just thought, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna. This year wasn't about Euros; it was about Olympics. So let's just focus on that. You know, I think even if I did appeal, going through what I did this week now, it would have probably mentally killed me. And at the same time, it probably wouldn't have like made any difference anyway, you know. So
yeah. It's obviously that's the kind of racing structure and the racing setup, but and you touched upon mileage a little bit, but I'm interested to hear, you know, how much steeple work are you doing, how much race pace work are you doing, because obviously you've got to an incredibly high level on your own here as well, proving that you can get to that level training solo and even working full time like you have been. So yeah, you were able to open up on the nitty and gritty a little bit.
yeah, so I live down in Barnstable, North Devon, which is pretty rural, you know, location. Like I'm like 4 hours on the train if I want to get to London, like to the airport to fly, you know, across to Europe for a race. And yeah, I just train at our local track. I'm still second claim for them. That's North Devon Athletic Club. Um, but yeah, I'm down there and I don't have a training group. I don't have anyone that trains with me. Like, I can't actually remember the last time I did a training session with someone else. I think it might have been 2022, when I had Johnny Hopkins come down and stay with me a bit, and we like linked up on some sessions. But yeah, since then I don't think I've actually done a training session like, on the track with like one other person even, uh, and like, yeah, and I haven't like even like had someone on like the bike or something like that, because my coach, he lives in Slovenia. I just get my plan via email. We just talk on the phone through the week, like we touch base after each session, saying how it went and whatnot. So yeah, my training's completely solo, and I'm just miles away from anyone. So, and it's always windy down here as well. So, but I think like, yeah, it's tough, but at the same time, it just creates that mental toughness. And like when I hit the front in the champs, like that's kind of me in my comfort zone, man. Like that's what I'm used to. I'm used to like running without someone in front of me, like on my own, setting the pace, because like I just have to rely on myself every single rep to keep it honest and keep that pace on point. Because when you've got a group, you can take it in turns. You can just like tuck in, switch off, not even think about the pace you're running. But when you're on your own, and you're doing like 8 or 9 by K or like 16 400s, every single one of those reps, you have to be like nailing it, and making sure you're staying on pace. You can't switch off. Like, part of you wants to relax, but if you do that, you're not gonna hit your splits. So, but yeah, well, when it comes to like hurdling, I'm like hurdling at least like 2-3 times a week in terms of going over the hurdle. Because like I'm doing drills like at least 3 times a week, and at least 2 of those times, like I'll do the drills, and then after the drill, I'll be clearing a hurdle. So, and that's all year round. That's through the winter as well. So I'm always in touch. I'm always in touch with the hurdle. And like I also practice water jump as well. Like, not that I fill the pit up. I put like just your normal gym mats there, not like the real soft crash mats, but just a normal gym mat. And like from like I think sort of like end of February, March time, we start like kind of bringing in a bit of that into it as well. So, because I think that's a lot of people overlook just practicing the water jump. That's such a big part of the event. So you've got to be efficient and you know and get that part of the race right. Like races are won and lost there. So yeah, we do a lot of that, and then the actual hurdling sessions, they normally don't start probably until like towards the end of March. I'd normally do like a sort of like a 2K time trial with hurdles, no water jump with hurdles, and that kind of just like sets a benchmark of where I am, and we know sort of like the paces of what we need to do in terms of sessions, and then it's just sort of gradually introducing hurdling sessions from that point on, really.
Mm.
Yeah, and then so those kind of like hurdle interval workouts, that's something you then do like once a week, from that point.
I wouldn't say it's even as much as once a week.
Okay.
Like you might throw one in every like couple of weeks, and it all depends on like if you've got a race coming up as to obviously like the volume of the hurdle reps you're doing, and that, like if it's coming up to a race, like I might do like, I mean, I can give an example of like maybe prior to the race I did in Nice, where I ran 8:20.9 out there. A week out from there, we did 3 by a K over hurdles, and but we gave generous recovery because we didn't want me hitting loads of lactic. It was more about like kind of running quick, and I think Thomas wanted me to go like 2:43, like comfortable 2:43 first rep, and then like 2:45-ish the second rep, like a bit easier, and then like going hard on the last rep. But I think I was more like closer to 2:40 the first rep, and then like 2:42 the second rep, and then like 2:36 the last rep with like a 44 last 300. Yeah, and that was like, that was just about feeling good. Like it wasn't necessarily like trying to create that training effect, or it's just sort of like just feeling good at those sort of paces, because that was more what it was all about, rather than creating too much lactic. But we've done like multiple different sessions in the past, like where we've like alternated, like going like K flat, K hurdle, K flat, K hurdle, and other bits and pieces like that, or we'll do like say 3 by a K and then throw in like say 6 by 300 hurdles or something after it, and the like. So it's not strictly just pure hurdling session. It could be a combination of doing some flat work, doing some hurdle work, or doing some hurdle work and flat work combined. So yeah, there's a lot of options to be there.
Yeah, and your coach Thomas, this is a man that you started working with sort of when you were starting back. So there's a few questions here. One, obviously, just want to rewind a little bit. You quit the sport in the first place. Why did you stop? And then what made you start up again? And then from that, how did that relationship with Thomas come about?
Yeah, so I suppose for like a lot of people, they probably have only heard me of like just recent years and probably thought I was just late to the sport, But I started when I was 8 years old. This is back in like I started back in like 1998. Like that's when I started running for Exeter Harriers, and that was just kind of like just in like your sprints and jumps group. Like I was doing all sorts back then. I was like doing your sprints, high jump, long jump. A bit of everything really. I even did like some pentathlon, like in the local league meets. And it wasn't for like maybe a year after that where I sort of then moved into a middle distance group. And then moved to North Devon when I was like 12. I was coached by Mark Brace, he's had some real good like 800, 1500 guys, like English schools. We had Sam Petty in the 800, he got a gold. We got Michael Cole, who got silver in the 800. Myself, I got gold and 2 silvers in steeplechaser English schools as well. So we had like, for such a small club in this like North Devon area, we had like huge success with junior athletes. And at 17, like first year under 20, I won the under 20 champs, the 3As, as bottom year of that age group, and ran 9:10 and qualified for the Euros, but obviously I didn't go because UK wanted me to run inside 9 minutes, and I didn't run inside 9 minutes, so I never went. But I think my time at 9:10 would have qualified me for the final of the European under 20s back then. So it's been going on this sort of thing a long time. But yeah, the following year, like 2008, I had like my first real serious injury. Like I tore like 4 muscles around my hip joint, and like I just sort of struggled to get back to any kind of like real form. And to this day, I still only can hurdle with my left leg lead, just because my left hip, like I just struggle like getting that trail leg round like efficiently. So I just opt to just lead with the one leg, just try and gauge it in the races, right? That year was like the first year I didn't progress. I was on UKA like world class talent program at the time, and I just felt like all the fun was getting like sapped out of the sport for me, and at the end of that year, like I had finished college, I was 18. I dedicated 10 years of my life to the sport, and just felt like I just felt like I was just missing out on life, and just basically called it quits. I felt like at that time I was running not for myself but for other people, like my parents, and just trying to make them proud, and I wasn't really doing it for myself, and stepped away. But at that time I didn't know if that was it completely, or if I would ever come back, I did like come back to the club like a couple of times on training nights just to like have a run, in 2010, you can see my power 10. I did a 400 hurdles in like a 58 or something. And I think I had gone to the track for like a few weeks and was like, oh yeah, I'll do a Southern League or whatever, like a bit of fun. But I didn't stick with it. I was there for a few weeks and I was like, I went back again. And I was just playing like Sunday league football, local, like Saturday league at a very low level. Just like, yeah, just was completely out of shape, just going out drinking, partying, just living life basically. Yeah, and then 2014, I was on holiday with my like now wife. I proposed to her on that holiday actually, and I was reading Mo Farah's book, and it was just like dredging up loads of old memories from the past. And I just got myself thinking, like I was a bit like getting a bit pissed off with football at the time, just because of the level I was playing at, and when you've competed at such a high level, like just to be playing like amateur like football and just like it just yeah, just getting a bit pissed off of it really. So yeah, I just turned to my wife and said, no, I think I might you know might try the running again, you know. And you know, at that point, like bless her, she didn't have a clue what she was letting herself into. Like she just like agreed to marry me, so she had no way out at that point, you know. So, but yeah, like you look at the journey now, she had no idea what was to come ahead, and neither did I, you know. But yeah, so that was kind of like end of June that year. I started training in July. That was 2014, and then August 2014 was obviously the commies, and I saw James Wilkinson run there and come fifth. And I'd seen that he'd run 8:22 that year, and I was like, shit, like I used to beat this guy all the time. And that gave me inspiration and like gave me that self-belief, like not that it would happen like overnight, like that I could do that, but you know, I'm 24, I'm nearly 25, but you know, I could do this, you know, I could run those sort of times, like I could make a championships. And yeah, so it just basically started from there really, and it was just kind of like just taking it like just trying to take it bit by bit, not be like, oh, I'm going to make an Olympics, like that was just completely unrealistic. So I was like, okay, what can I do? Like, right, let's try and beat my PB from when I was 17 years old, and did that. Okay, let's try and make a British champs. Did that, and then like 2018, I ran like 8:35, and the Euro qualifying time was 8:32. And I was like, oh man, like I'm getting so close here. But like I had no consistency in my performances. Like I think my next best time was like 8:49. And Guelph, that was like my first time ever like going abroad and like racing in a meet like that. And I just pulled out an absolute blinder. Like I still to this day, I've got no idea how I ran that 8:35. I had no business running 8:35. But all I can remember from that race is like absolutely climbing over the barriers in the last lap. That's like the most lactic I've ever found myself in a steeplechase. To this day, I think like, man, I've got to get myself back in that zone of feeling that bad on the last lap. No, that being able to run with that much lactic, that's kind of what it's going to take to like run these stupid fast times. Yeah, so I just didn't have the consistency to my performances. I got found out at the British champs and ran like 8:50 and come like eighth or something, and I was just kind of like, you know, what's going on here? Why aren't I able to like, you know, back these like performances up? And it was at that point I was kind of like, I need to change something with my training, you know, like I need to do something different. And so at the time I was running for Woodford, and Thomas, he was still in London living. He was at Woodford. That's basically how I met him, and he was coaching Adam Kirk-Smith at the time. And I'd seen like the progression that Adam Kirk-Smith had over like literally like the 2 years he had been with Thomas, and thought, you know, this guy knows what he's doing. Like he knows steeplechase, and like he just seemed a really good guy from like just the brief encounters I'd had with him at the NALs and the other meets that he had been at. So you know, I reached out to him and just to see if it was even a possibility that he would consider coaching me, and also like to see if I felt like it would be the right fit. And as it turned out, like Adam Kirk-Smith had recently left him, and Thomas wasn't coaching him anymore, so he had like a spot there like for me to step into. And the thing I liked about Thomas was like his like holistic approach to like the training. Like he understood that I've got a wife, I've got a job, like I've got a life outside of athletics, and like athletics isn't my life, like it's just part of it. And he was able to like chat with me, and we just basically were able to like devise a plan which worked around my work, and just basically suited me as a person, and worked well for myself. And I definitely would not have achieved what I have achieved without the help from Thomas. Like he, the results from 2019 onwards are solely down to that work with Thomas. And, you argue that's basically where I turned the corner and started to, start picking up medals at the champs and getting myself onto these teams. And, I'll forever be grateful for Thomas, but like for the support and the coaching he's given me. Like he's been absolutely incredible, like the amount of time he's dedicated to it. So yeah, that's kind of like how that all came about, of being coached by Thomas, and kind of how the journey is quite a long one, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great, and it's a great story. I guess just the main question from us before we start wrapping up is, where does this journey go next for you now, Phil?
Yeah, that's a question I've been asking myself these last few days. I don't want to like have it decided like by UK Athletics. They saying, oh, them forcing my retirement, them saying like this, this is your last race, Phil. You're not doing the Olympics. That's you done. Like, part of me is like, right, I really want to stick it to him, go out there and just smash a super fast time. I'd always planned to do, Paris Olympics, and see after that kind of how I was feeling to end the season. I always had on my radar the Silesia Diamond League at the end of August. So that's kind of where my mind's sort of like going to a little bit at the moment. Is like, like maybe I can go into a good training block now and just absolutely smash a ridiculous time at that Silesia Diamond League. But the problem I've been having all season is just getting into these races. The highest level race I've done is the champs, which was equivalent to silver level. After that, my best like meets I've been able to get into a bronze. So I've struggled to get into a gold meet, let alone the Diamond League. So, if there's anyone out there who could get me into that Silesia Diamond League and doesn't want me to retire just yet, and wants me to, wants to see me do, one more race at least, then like I think I could definitely see myself targeting that Silesia Diamond League. But I'd have to have that like 100% guaranteed entry, and I just can't see myself like training another 7 weeks without like a purpose or a goal. Like I would need to know that I'm going to be on that start list. So yeah, that's something for me to try and secure, get into that Diamond League. I hope that maybe like whoever the organizer is has maybe seen my story, seen like how I've been running this year, and thinks, okay, let's give this guy a shot. I've never been in a foreign Diamond League. The only Diamond League I've ever done is the Gateshead one, which was terrible. So it would be nice to, in my career, at least have the opportunity to do one proper Diamond League. So, I'm hoping that is, still on the cards, and you haven't seen the very last of me yet, that there's still one, at least one last final race in there. And, who knows, like, if I got in there and did run something stupid, who knows what might happen after that. Like maybe the possibility is there to go one more season. But that's just something that I'll have to decide when it comes to it, really. The first thing is getting in that race, and then the second is basically seeing how that race goes, But yeah, nothing's certain, nothing's fully decided yet. I'm still, open to racing, but I would just definitely need to know that I have got that race. Like this season's been my best season ever. I've had like you know, I've really enjoyed this season. You know, like it's probably the first like season that I've properly like gone around and been racing on the European circuit. And like just, you know, and I felt like I've really like just understand the event. You know, I've been doing it for years, but I feel like this is the first year that I've actually started to understand this event and like how to race it. You know, so yeah, it would be nice to do a Diamond League to cap off the season, and we would just basically, you know, we would go from there really. So we'll just have to wait and see.
And of course, that qualifying window for next year's Worlds is presumably open now as well. So if you did run something fast, I guess that would entice you in for another year.
I knew you might say something about that. Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to make any kind of decision right now off the back of everything, but you know, it's obviously it's something that has to seriously be discussed. You know, like if I was to run that time, you know, that's definitely something I would have to talk with my coach, with my family. Like, you know, it's not just me that's making these sacrifices. You know, it's you know, it's my wife, and obviously I got 2-year-old son as well. You know, so you know, it's not just me that's kind of like I can't just make these decisions. It's just would just be selfish of me to solely do that down to, you know, what I want to do. You know, it's got to be for the best of my family at the end of the day. So, but yeah, that's definitely a serious discussion that have to take place. Like if I was to run that time, and that is something I definitely feel like I can achieve on the right day, in the right race. But yeah, we'll see.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we obviously kind of support your decision to carry on. Like I think PB in this year definitely shows that there's more in the tank, and I guess that Tokyo Olympian and then finishing up at Tokyo World Champs in 25 might not be such a bad thing as well, Phil. But look, it's been great to have you on the podcast today, and thank you so much, and all the best with kind of trying to get some clarity going forwards with all your stuff with BA as well.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really love listening to this podcast. So when you reached out to me to come on, like, of course, I wanted to be on here and share my story, chat to you guys. I know you're really passionate about the sport. We're very like-minded in wanting to promote this sport for the better. So, yeah, just to be able to chat with you guys, come on here, share my story to all the listeners. It's been my absolute pleasure. And yeah, really thank you guys for the opportunity today.